them. Play as time goes by.
What the fuck have you done lately?
Play as time goes by.
What are you doing up?
Well,
I couldn't sleep.
good evening then.
What do I give? How do I live in this life of ours? All I know is that I take plenty from here under the stars. I won't revive, I won't relive. I accept what I've done and I forgive. What do I give? How do I live in this life of ours? All I know is that I take plenty from here under the stars. I won't revive, I won't relive. I accept what I've done and I forgive. What do I give? How do I live in this life of ours? All I know is that I take plenty from here under the stars. I won't revive, I won't relive. I accept what I've done and I forgive. Nebulous days lead me to ravenous haze. Nebulous days lead me to ravenous haze, which will block my gaze. Illusory ways make feelings that don't stay. In and out they face. Is it always that? My tangible wishes are just out of reach. Nebulous days lead me to ravenous haze, which will block my gaze. Illusory ways make feelings that don't stay. In and out they face. Is it always that? My intangible wishes are just out of reach.
やれやれ。退屈だと言って何も行動せず、刺激を求める割には挑戦しない。
Feelings that don't stay. Feelings that don't stay. Feelings that don't stay.
いいかい埼玉市。人生は当てのない旅だよ。新しい景色を見るためには自分で道を切り開くしかないんだ。
Is it always that? Is it always that? My tangible wishes are just out of reach. Are just out of reach. Is it always that? Is it always that?
We're in. We're live. So,
Submerge the device in liquid, even partially.
this should be fun. I should probably leave for this, huh? This seems kind of dangerous. You guys can do this without me. Uh-oh. Oh. Let's do it. Yeah.
Begone, thought.
Hello. Is there grapefruit in real life? Yeah, it's me. I'm that. How should... Oh, this is... this is kind of amazing and kind of dumb. Are you guys ready for this? What a great ending. Alright, we're not done though. That's it.
Join me for an adventure, oh, much like any other, with twists and turns and plot devices, words and wonder. Now my advice is listen close. What makes this story different is the teller and the toll. This one's ours and it's waiting to unfold. So come be merry with me. adventure. Oh, much like any other, with twists and turns and plot devices, words and wonder. Now my advice is listen close. What makes this story different is the teller and the told. This one's ours and it's waiting to unfold. Welcome everybody to another edition of Merry Mitch. Hope everybody's been having a real dandy day. What's up, Lay? What's up, Coleman? What's going on, May? Heck, it's super good to have all of you here yet again. I figured I'd go ahead and join Snoopy in the beginning there, you know, just get a little reading in as the song progressed. You packed your entire closet. Whoa. Oh, lots of skeletons. I don't doubt it, dude. I think I might have a few of those myself. But yeah, heck, I pray everybody's doing mighty fine. I myself have been having a real good day. Started real late. I lost a lot of daylight. No, won't lie. Got up at about like 1 p.m. as one does. You know, had a little convo about it with my roommate this morning, just about how, you know, he encouraged me, which was really nice of him, because I was, you know, whenever I wake up that late in the day, I tend to be grumpier than normal, because, you know, I don't like wasting daylight, but he encouraged me and said, hey man, you know, if the time was well spent last night that led you to sleep in so long, then is that so bad a thing? And I don't know, I hadn't really thought about it that way, and it's a nice thing. And I also kind of commented on how at least I didn't have any responsibilities on the morrow that I had to that I missed out on, or, you know, anything that any responsibilities that were shirked or anything. Thankfully I had the luxury of being able to sleep in. And it was nice, you know, I slept in, I was able to get up, get a couple things done before I headed off to my practice. Practice today was super nice. One of our members is graduating, so today was her final day of practice. So we kind of did a little send-off party for her as well as the normal practice, and it was a nice time. They let us like go outside for a little bit, which was nice. I laid down on the pavement, soaked up some rays. It was a real nice time. Then afterwards, I got myself some Chick-fil-A. Delicious stuff. Did you know they have gluten-free buns at Chick-fil-A? I had no frickin' clue. But I found out today. And that, dude, I'll tell you what. Nothing else will delight me more than finding out some place has gluten-free buns. Honestly, like that's just no lie. I love me some gluten-free buns. So my dinner was super nice, and I got back. I decompressed a bit, took a shower, and now that my tea is made, I'm here before you, ready for tonight's stream. I decided yesterday that tonight's stream will be primarily going through and finishing this here book. We got 2 chapters left. Since I'm starting later, that may be all that happens tonight on this Fantasy Friday. But I promise next week I'll have some solid short stories prepared. I'm thinking if we do read a short story tonight, it'll be one of the ones that we missed out on last time. Such as The Frost Giant's Daughter, or A Man Called Happiness. There's a couple that could prove to be nice. But it depends on how quickly we fly through Percy. Or we could start one of the longer ones, like The Paper Menagerie. Actually, this one isn't too terribly long. It's about a chapter, 13 pages. Nice, yeah, we do have a few here left. Alright, well, I think it's about time we get into that recap, shall we? So last we left off, our heroes had finally made it through the labyrinth and gotten to the destination that they had wished to arrive at. Found out something quite unexpected. Found out Daedalus was not exactly who they thought he would be. After a brief bout and fight, they flew out the window on Daedalus's Daedalus's wings 2.0 and flew down and landed, and soon they realized though that the wings wouldn't carry them all the way back to Camp Half-Blood, so they would need to figure out some way to get themselves back home. Thankfully, Rachel Elizabeth Dare had something up her sleeve. She wound up just walking up to a driver, right? Not even a taxi driver, but like a professional driver, and just said something to him, and the guy immediately was like, "Oh my, yes, oh, of course, Mrs. Dare, we will take you at once." Nobody questioned it. And it seemed like Rachel didn't really want to talk about it either. So, albeit to say, they got their ride back to, not even back to Camp Half-Blood, because that would have made for a huge long drive. But they found another entrance to the labyrinth. As they were diving back down into the labyrinth, they came across a presence, right? Something that they just could not ignore. And what was it? It was the presence of Mount Tamalpais, where the Titan stronghold resides. Percy decided we might not get another opportunity like this, and said, "I'm going in there, and I'm going to go stop whatever's happening." And when he arrived, lo and behold, Ethan Nakamura was there, speaking with some telkines, those dog-headed, seal-esque beings, monsters, if you will. He rushed up with his invisible cap on through the fortress until he found the golden sarcophagus, where supposedly Kronos' remains lie and reform slowly but surely. He opened up the coffin, and before him was not Kronos, but it was a familiar face. Luke. Luke was in the coffin, seemingly ice cold, and he appeared to be dead. But there was a part of him missing, so this sort of black hole in his, right where his chest region was. Percy wound up so shocked and stunned that he couldn't follow through with what he had gone there to do, which was to slice up the Titan's body again before it could reform. And soon enough, the Telkines and Ethan Nakamura showed up and went, "Whoa, what's going on here? The coffin is open. What's happening?" And the Telkine said, like, "Oi, Ethan, you gotta go do the thing right now." And Ethan was like, "Okay, sure, you got it." But just before Ethan was about to do it, Percy couldn't stand by any longer and took off his invisible cap and yelled, "Ethan, don't do it! Don't do this, Ethan!" But Ethan looked back at him and said, "Listen, I am the son of the god of revenge, or goddess of revenge. This is what I was meant to do." And he pledged his loyalty to the Titan Kronos, the Titan Lord Kronos, and thus proved to be the last piece that was needed for Kronos to rise. And rise Kronos did, with our heroes making it out of there by the skin of their necks. They ran for all they were worth, ran and ran. And soon enough, they came across another powerful being, meeting back up with their friends Tyson and Grover. They arrived just in time for Grover to complete his long-awaited quest. They arrived just in time for them to meet Pan. Pan had some words to say to all of them, but the main thing that he wanted to get across was that he tried so long ago, and now Grover is the one that needs to actually spread it and get everybody to believe it. That Pan, the great god Pan, is dead. Pan simply wished to move on. His time had come. Grover was a little distraught, but he understood, and our heroes moved on to continue on their quest and make it back to Camp Half-Blood before the Titan army showed up at their doorstep. They did arrive in time, and goodness, Percy commented on how he had never seen the camp like this before. Everybody in full Greek armor, with barricades being set up by the Hephaestus cabin, the whole Athena cabin, meeting together, congregating, and working out battle plans and strategies. And soon enough, out of Zeus's fist came the Titan's army. All hell broke loose, and the fight ensued. Every time that they thought that they might be pushing them back enough to have the slimmest sliver of a chance, more and more monsters would come from the cave and prove them wrong. And on top of that, Campe, the horrifying half-dragon, half-woman monster, ancient monster, showed up with her two poison-ridden blades, just to top it all off and prove that their efforts would be in vain. But just as Percy and Annabeth were about to succumb to Campe's wrath, two more entities showed up from the Labyrinth. But this time they weren't hostile entities. It was Daedalus and Briares, the 100-handed one. And of course Mrs. O'Leary. And that was enough to turn the tide of the battle. They finished them off with Grover, of all people, striking the final blow, or rather, hitting the final note with a shriek that seemed to shake and rattle everyone that heard it, shaking the monsters so much to their core that they feared Grover more than the Titan Lord himself, turned their tails and ran. Weird, but hey, in a battle like that, we take those. So yes, and that's where we left off. Oh, sorry. The last thing that happened was Daedalus decided that it was his time to move on. That if he didn't move on and let his life finally pass, then the Titan's army would have an easy route back into Camp Half-Blood. So with Daedalus' sacrifice, the camp seems to be safe again. But with Daedalus gone, they have lost an incredible inventor and a powerful ally. So, with all that being said, let's go ahead and finish this book. Is everybody ready for story time? Because, by golly, I know I am. Allow me to check on my tea real quick, though. Too hot. Still too hot. So, this is Percy Jackson and the Battle of the Labyrinth by Rick Riordan. 19. The council gets cloven. There were too many goodbyes. That night was the first time I actually saw camp burial shrouds used on bodies, and it was not something I wanted to see again. Among the dead, Lee Fletcher from the Apollo cabin had been drowned by a giant's club. He was wrapped in a golden shroud without any decoration. The son of Dionysus, who'd gone down fighting an enemy half-blood, was wrapped in a deep purple shroud embroidered with grapevines. His name was Castor. I was ashamed that I'd seen him around camp for 3 years and never even bothered to learn his name. He'd been 17 years old. His twin brother, Pollux, tried to say a few words, but he choked up and just took the torch. He lit the funeral pyre in the middle of the amphitheater, and within seconds, the row of shrouds was engulfed in fire, sending smoke and sparks up to the stars. We spent the next day treating the wounded, which was almost everybody. The satyrs and dryads worked to repair the damage to the woods. At noon, the Council of Cloven Elders held an emergency meeting in their sacred grove. The 3 senior satyrs were there, along with Chiron, who was in wheelchair form. His broken horse leg was still mending, so he would be confined to the chair for a few months until the leg was strong enough to take his weight again. The grove was filled with satyrs and dryads and naiads up from the water, hundreds of them, anxious to hear what would happen. Juniper, Annabeth, and I stood by Grover's side. Silenas wanted to exile Grover immediately, but Chiron persuaded him to at least hear evidence first. So we told everyone what had happened in the Crystal Cavern, and what Pan had said. Then several eyewitnesses from the battle described the weird sound Grover had made, which drove the Titan's army back underground.
It was panic, insisted Juniper. Grover summoned the power of the wild god.
Panic? I asked. Percy, Chiron explained. During the first war of the gods and the Titans, Lord Pan let forth a horrible cry that scared away the enemy armies. It was the greatest power, a massive wave of fear that helped the gods win the day. The word panic is named after Pan, you see, and Grover used that power, calling it forth from within himself.
Preposterous,
Silenus bellowed.
Sacrilege! Perhaps
the wild god favored us with a blessing. Or perhaps Grover's music was so awful it scared the enemy away. That wasn't it, sir, Grover said. He sounded a lot calmer than I would have been if I'd been insulted like that. He let his spirit pass into all of us. We must act. Each of us must work to renew the world and the wild, to protect what's left of it. We must spread the word. Pan is dead. There is no one but us. After 2,000 years of searching, this is what you would have us believe, Silenus cried. Never! We must continue the search. Exile the traitor. Some of the older satyrs muttered assent. A vote, Silenus demanded. Who would believe this ridiculous young satyr anyway? I would, said a familiar voice. Everyone turned. Striding into the grove was Dionysus. He wore a formal black suit, so I almost didn't recognize him. A deep purple tie and violet dress shirt. His curly dark hair carefully combed. His eyes were bloodshot as usual, and his pudgy face was flushed. But he looked like he was suffering from grief more than wine withdrawal. The satyrs all stood respectfully and bowed as he approached. Dionysus waved his hand, and a new chair grew out of the ground next to Silenus's, a throne made of grapevines. Dionysus sat down and crossed his legs. He snapped his fingers, and a satyr hurried forward with a plate of cheese and crackers and a Diet Coke. The god of wine looked around at the assembled crowd. Miss me? The satyrs fell over themselves, nodding and bowing. Oh, yes, very much, sire, very much. Well, I did not miss this place, Dionysus snapped. I bear bad news, my friends. Evil news. The minor gods are changing sides. Morpheus has gone over to the enemy. Hecate, Janus, and Nemesis as well. Zeus knows how many more. Thunder rumbled in the distance. Strike that, Dionysus said. Even Zeus doesn't know. Now, I want to hear Grover's story. Again, from the top. But my lord, Silenus protested. It is nonsense. Dionysus's eyes flared with purple fire. I have just learned that my son Castor is dead, Silenus. I'm not in a good mood. You would do well to humor me. Silenus gulped and waved at Grover to start again. When Grover was done, Mr. D nodded. It sounds like just the sort of thing Pan would do. Grover's right. The search is tiresome. You must start thinking for yourselves. He turned to a satyr. Bring me some peeled grapes. Right away. Oh, yes, sire. The satyr scampered off. We must exile the traitor, Silenus insisted. I say no, Dionysus countered. That is my vote. I vote no as well, Chiron put in. Silenus set his jaw stubbornly. All in favor of the exile? He and the two other old satyrs raised their hands. 3, 2, 2, Silenus said. Yes, Dionysus said. But, unfortunately for you, a god's vote counts twice. And as I vote against, we're tied. Silenus stood indignant. This is an outrage. The council cannot stand at an impasse. Then let it be dissolved, Mr. D said. I don't care. Silenus bowed stiffly, along with his 2 friends, and they left the grove. About 20 satyrs went with them. The rest stood around, murmuring uncomfortably. Don't worry, Grover told them. We don't need a council to tell us what to do. We can figure it out for ourselves. He told them again the words of Pan, how they must save the wild, a little at a time. He started dividing the satyrs into groups. Which ones would go to the national parks? Which ones would search out the last wild places? Which ones would defend the parks in big cities? Well, Annabeth said to me, Grover seems to be growing up. Later that afternoon, I found Tyson at the beach, talking to Briares. Briares was building a sandcastle with about 50 of his hands. He wasn't really paying attention to it, but his hands had constructed a 3-story compound with fortified walls, a moat, and a drawbridge. Tyson was drawing a map in the sand.
Go left at the reef,
he told Briares.
Straight down when you see the sunken ship. Then about 1 mile east, past the mermaid graveyard, you will start to see fires burning.
You're giving him directions to the forges? I asked. Tyson nodded.
Briares wants to help. He will teach Cyclopses ways we have forgotten. How to make better weapons and armor.
I want to see Cyclopses.
Briares agreed.
I don't want to be lonely anymore.
I doubt you'll be lonely down there, I said, a little wistfully, because I'd never been in Poseidon's kingdom. They're going to keep you real busy. Briares' face morphed to a happy expression.
Busy sounds good. I only wish Tyson could go too.
Tyson blushed.
Oh, I need to stay here with my brother. You will do fine, Briares. Thank you.
The 100-handed one shook my hand about 100 times.
We will meet again, Percy. I know it.
Then he gave Tyson a big octopus hug and waded out into the ocean. We watched until his enormous head disappeared under the waves. I clapped Tyson on the back. You helped him a lot.
I only talked to him.
You believed in him. Without Briares, we never would have taken down Campe. Tyson grinned.
He throws good rocks.
I laughed. Yeah, he throws really good rocks. Come on, big guy. Let's have dinner. It felt good to have a regular dinner at camp. Tyson sat with me at the Poseidon table. The sunset over Long Island Sound was beautiful. Things weren't back to normal by a long shot, but when I went up to the brazier and scraped part of my meal into the flames as an offering to Poseidon, I felt like I really did have a lot to be grateful for. My friends and I were alive. The camp was safe. Kronos had suffered a setback, at least for a while. The only thing that bothered me was Nico, hanging out in the shadows at the edge of the pavilion. He'd been offered a place at the Hermes table, and even at the head table with Chiron, but he had refused. After dinner, the campers headed toward the amphitheater, where Apollo's cabin promised an awesome sing-along to pick up our spirits. But Nico turned and disappeared into the woods. I decided I'd better follow him. As I passed under the shadows of the trees, I realized how dark it was getting. I'd never been scared in the forest before, though I knew there were plenty of monsters. Still, I thought about yesterday's battle, and I wondered if I'd ever be able to walk in these woods again without remembering the horror of so much fighting. I couldn't see Nico, but after a few minutes of walking, I saw a glow up ahead. At first, I thought Nico had lit a torch. As I got closer, I realized the glow was a ghost. The shimmering form of Bianca D'Angelo stood in the clearing, smiling at her brother. She said something to him and touched his face. Or tried to. Then her image faded. Nico turned and saw me, but he didn't look mad. "Saying goodbye," he said hoarsely. "We missed you at dinner," I said. "You could have sat with me." "No. Nico, you can't miss every meal. If you don't want to stay with Hermes, maybe they can make an exception and put you in the big house. They've got plenty of rooms." "I'm not staying, Percy." "But you can't just leave. It's too dangerous out there for a lone half-blood. You need to train." "I train with the dead," he said flatly. "This camp isn't for me. There's a reason they didn't put a cabin to Hades here, Percy. He's not welcome any more than he is on Olympus. I don't belong. I have to go." I wanted to argue, but part of me knew he was right. I didn't like it, but Nico would have to find his own dark way. I remembered in Pan's cave how the wild god had addressed each one of us individually, except Nico. "When will you go?" I asked. "Right away. I've got tons of questions. Like, who is my mother? Who paid for Bianca and me to go to school? Who is that lawyer guy who got us out of the Lotus Hotel? I know nothing about my past. I need to find out." "Makes sense," I admitted. "But I hope we don't have to be enemies." He lowered his gaze. "I'm sorry I was a brat. I should have listened to you about Bianca. By the way," I fished something out of my pocket. "Tyson found this when we were cleaning the cabin. Thought you might want it." I held out a lead figurine of Hades, the little mytho-magic statue Nico had abandoned when he fled camp last winter. Nico hesitated. "I don't play that game anymore. It's for kids." "It's got 4,000 attack power," I coaxed. 5,000, Nico corrected. "But only if your opponent attacks first." I smiled. Maybe it's okay to still be a kid once in a while. I tossed him the statuette. Nico studied it in his palm for a few seconds, then slipped it into his pocket. Thanks. I put out my hand. He shook it reluctantly. His hand was as cold as ice. I've got a lot of things to investigate, he said. Some of them... Well, if I learn anything useful, I'll let you know. I wasn't sure what he meant, but I nodded. Keep in touch, Nico. He turned and trudged off into the woods. The shadows seemed to bend towards him as he walked, like he were reaching out, like they were reaching out for his attention. A voice right behind me said, "There goes a troubled young man." I turned and found Dionysus standing there, still in his black suit. "Walk with me," he said. "Where to?" I asked suspiciously. "Just to the campfire," he said. "I was beginning to feel better, so I thought I would talk with you for a bit. You always manage to annoy me." Thanks." We walked through the woods in silence. I noticed that Dionysus was treading on air, his polished black shoes hovering an inch off of the ground. I guess he didn't want to get them dirty. "We have many betrayals," he said. "Things are not looking good for Olympus. Yet, you and Annabeth saved this camp. I'm not sure I should thank you for that." "It was a group effort." He shrugged. "Regardless, I suppose it was mildly competent, what you two did. I thought you should know, it wasn't a total loss." We reached the amphitheater, and Dionysus pointed toward the campfire. Clarice was sitting shoulder to shoulder with a big Hispanic kid who was telling her a joke. It was Chris Rodriguez, the half-blood who'd gone insane in the Labyrinth. I turned to Dionysus. You cured him." "Madness is my specialty. It was quite simple." "But you did something nice." "Why?" He raised an eyebrow. "I am nice. I simply ooze niceness, Perry Johnson. Haven't you noticed?" Perhaps I felt grieved by my son's death. Perhaps I thought this Chris boy deserved a second chance. At any rate, it seems to have improved Clarice's mood." "Why are you telling me this?" The wine god sighed. "Oh, Hades if I know. But remember, boy, that a kind act can sometimes be as powerful as a sword. As a mortal, I was never a great fighter, or athlete, or poet. I only made wine. The people in my village laughed at me. They said I would never amount to anything. Look at me now. Sometimes small things can become very large indeed." He left me alone to think about that. And as I watched Clarice and Chris singing a stupid campfire song together, holding hands in the darkness, where they thought nobody could see them, I had to smile. Keaton, stop. Sometimes small things can become very large indeed. There's nothing more to that, Keaton. Stop thinking with your dirty mind. You fool. Oh gosh, this last chapter is so short. Oh no. Oh no. No, 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 no. Lamo indeed. Oh yeah, no, we're finishing this right now. "20. My birthday party takes a dark turn. The rest of the summer seemed strange because it was so normal. The daily activities continued. Archery, rock climbing, Pegasus riding. We played capture the flag, though we all avoided Zeus's fist. We sang at the campfire and raced chariots and played practical jokes on the other cabins. I spent a lot of time with Tyson, playing with Mrs. O'Leary, but she would still howl at night when she got lonely for her old master. Annabeth and I pretty much skirted around each other. I was glad to be with her, but it also kind of hurt. And it hurt when I wasn't with her too. I wanted to talk to her about Kronos, but I couldn't do that anymore without bringing up Luke. And that was one subject I couldn't raise. She would shut me out every time I tried. July passed, with fireworks on the beach on the 4th. August turned so hot the strawberries started baking in the fields. Finally, the last day of camp arrived. The standard form letter appeared on my bed after breakfast, warning me that the cleaning harpies would devour me if I stayed past noon. At 10 o'clock, I stood on the top of Half-Blood Hill, waiting for the camp van that would take me into the city. I'd made arrangements to leave Mrs. O'Leary at camp, where Chiron promised she'd be looked after. Tyson and I would take turns visiting her during the year. I hoped Annabeth would be riding into Manhattan with me, but she only came to see me off. She said she'd arranged to stay at camp a little longer. She would tend to Chiron until his leg was fully recovered, and keep studying Daedalus's laptop, which had engrossed her for the last 2 months. Then she would head back to her father's place in San Francisco.
"There's a private school out there that I'll be going to," she said. "I'll probably hate it, but..."
She shrugged. "Yeah, well, call me, okay?"
"Sure,"
she said half-heartedly.
"I'll keep my eyes open for..."
There it was again. Luke. She couldn't even say his name without opening up a huge box of hurt and worry and anger. "Annabeth," I said, "what was the rest of the prophecy?" She fixed her eyes on the woods in the distance, but she didn't say anything. "You shall delve in the darkness of the endless maze," I remembered. The dead, the traitor, and the lost one raise. We raised a lot of the dead. We saved Ethan Nakamura, who turned out to be a traitor. We raised the spirit of Pan, the lost one. Annabeth shook her head like she wanted me to stop. You shall rise or fall by the Ghost King's hand. I pressed on. That wasn't Minos, like I'd thought. It was Nico. By choosing to be on our side, he saved us. And the child of Athena's final stand, that was Daedalus. Percy, destroy with a hero's final breath. That makes sense now. Daedalus died to destroy the Labyrinth. But what was the last? And lose a love to worse than death. Annabeth had tears in her eyes. That was the last line, Percy. Are you happy now? The sun seemed colder than it had a moment ago. Oh, I said. So Luke... Percy... I didn't know who the prophecy was talking about. I didn't know if... She faltered helplessly. Luke and I, for years, he was the only one who really cared about me. I thought... Before she could continue, a sparkle of light appeared next to us, like someone had opened a gold curtain in the air. You have nothing to apologize for, my dear. Standing on the hill was a tall woman in a white dress, her dark braid over her shoulder. Era? Annabeth said. The goddess smiled. You found the answers, as I knew you would. Your quest was a success. A success? Annabeth said. Luke is gone. Daedalus is dead. Pan is dead. How is that? Our family is safe, Hera insisted. Those others are better gone, my dear. I am proud of you. I balled my fists. I couldn't believe she was saying this. You're the one who paid Gurion to let us through the ranch, weren't you? Era shrugged. Her dress shimmered in rainbow colors. I wanted to speed you on your way. But you didn't care about Nico. You were happy to see him turned over to the Titans. Oh, please. Hera waved her hand dismissively. The son of Hades said it himself. No one wants him around. He doesn't belong. Festus was right, I growled. You only care about your perfect family, not real people. Her eyes turned dangerously bright. Watch yourself, son of Poseidon. I guided you more than you know in the maze. I was at your side when you faced Gurion. I let your arrow fly straight. I sent you to Calypso's island. I opened the way to the Titan's mountain. Annabeth, my dear, surely you see how I've helped. I would welcome a sacrifice for my efforts. Annabeth stood still as a statue. She could have said thank you. She could have promised to throw some barbecue on the brazier for Era and forget the whole thing. But she clenched her jaw stubbornly. She looked just the way she had when she'd faced the Sphinx, like she wasn't going to accept an easy answer, even if it got her in serious trouble. I realized that was one of the things I liked best about Annabeth.
Percy is right. She turned her back on the goddess. You're the one who doesn't belong, Queen Era. So next time, thanks, but no thanks.
Era's sneer was worse than an imposa's. Her form began to glow.
You will regret this insult, Annabeth. You will regret this very much.
I averted my eyes as the goddess turned into her divine form and disappeared in a blaze of light. The hilltop was peaceful again. Over at the pine tree, Peleus, the dragon, dozed under the golden fleece, as if nothing had happened.
I'm sorry,
Annabeth told me.
I should get back. I'll keep in touch.
Listen, Annabeth, I thought about Mount St. Helens, Calypso's island, Luke and Rachel Elizabeth there, and how suddenly everything had gotten so complicated. I wanted to tell Annabeth that I didn't really want to be so distant from her. Then Argus honked his horn down the road, and I lost my chance.
You'd better get going,
Annabeth said.
Take care, seaweed brain.
She jogged down the hill. I watched her until she reached the cabins. She didn't look back once. Two days later was my birthday. I never advertised the date, because it always felt right after camp, so none of my camp friends could usually come. And I didn't have that many mortal friends. Besides, getting older didn't seem like anything to celebrate, since I'd gotten the big prophecy about me destroying or saving the world when I turned 16. Now I was turning 15. I was running out of time. My mom threw me a small party at our apartment. Paul Blowfist came over. But that was okay, because Chiron had manipulated the mist to convince everyone at Good High School that I had nothing to do with the band room explosion. Now Paul and the other witnesses were convinced that Kelly had been a crazy, firebomb-throwing cheerleader, while I had simply been an innocent bystander who'd panicked and ran from the scene. I would still be allowed to start as a freshman at Good next month. If I wanted to keep my record of getting kicked out of school every year, I'd have to try harder. Tyson came to my party, too, and my mother baked 2 extra blue cakes just for him. While Tyson helped my mom blow up party balloons, Paul Blowfist asked me to help him in the kitchen. As we were pouring punch, he said, "I hear your mom signed you up for driver's ed this fall." "Yeah, it's cool. I can't wait." Seriously, I'd been excited about getting my license forever. But I guess my heart wasn't in it anymore. And Paul could tell. In a weird way, he reminded me of Chiron sometimes. How he could look at you and actually see your thoughts. I guess it was that teacher aura. "You've had a rough summer," he said. "I'm guessing you lost someone important. And, girl trouble?" I stared at him. How do you know that? Did my mom... He held up his hands. Oh, your mom hasn't said a thing. And I won't pry. I just know there's something unusual about you, Percy. You've got a lot going on that I can't figure. But I was also 15 once, and I'm just guessing from your expression. Well, I'm guessing you've had a rough time. I nodded. I promised my mom I would tell Paul the truth about me, but now didn't seem the time. Not yet. I lost a couple of friends at this camp I go to, I said. I mean, not close friends, but still. I'm sorry. Yeah, and, I guess the girls' stuff, Here, Paul handed me some punch. To your 15th birthday, and to a better year to come. We tapped our paper cups together and drank. Percy, I feel... Oh, I kind of feel bad giving you one more thing to think about, Paul said. But I wanted to ask you something. Yeah. Girl stuff. I frowned. What do you mean? Your mom, Paul said. I'm thinking about proposing to her. I almost dropped my cup. You mean marrying her? You and her? Well, that was the general idea. Would that be okay with you? You're asking my permission? Paul scratched his beard. I don't know if it's permission so much, but she's your mother. And I know you're going through a lot. I wouldn't feel right if I didn't talk to you about it first. Man to man. Man to man, I repeated. It sounded strange, saying that. I thought about Paul and my mom, how she smiled and laughed more whenever he was around, and how Paul had gone out of his way to get me into high school. I found myself saying, I think that's a great idea, Paul. Go for it. He smiled really wide then. Cheers, Percy. Let's join the party. I was just getting ready to blow out the candles when the doorbell rang. My mom frowned. Who could that be? It was weird, because our new building had a doorman, but he hadn't called up or anything. My mom opened the door and gasped. It was my dad. He was wearing Bermuda shorts and a Hawaiian shirt and Birkenstocks, like he usually does. His black beard was neatly trimmed and his sea-green eyes twinkled. He wore a battered cap decorated with fishing lures. It said, Neptune's lucky fishing hat. My mother stopped herself. She was blushing right to the roots of her hair. Hello? Hello, Sally, Poseidon said. You look as beautiful as ever. May I come in? My mother made a squeaking sound that might have been either yes or help. Poseidon took it as a yes and came in. Paul was looking back and forth between us, trying to read our expressions. Finally, he stepped forward. Hi, I'm Paul Blowfish. Poseidon raised his eyebrows as they shook hands. Blowfish, did you say? No. Blowfish, actually. Oh. I see, Poseidon said. A shame. I quite like Blowfish. I am Poseidon. Poseidon? That's an interesting name. Yes, I like it. I've gone by other names, but I do prefer Poseidon. Like the god of the sea? Very much like that, yes.
Well, my mom interrupted. We're so glad you could drop by. Paul, this is Percy's father.
Ah, Paul nodded, though he didn't really look pleased. I see. Poseidon smiled at me. There you are, my boy. And Dyson! Hello, son! Daddy! Dyson bounded across the room and gave Poseidon a big hug, which almost knocked off his fishing hat. Paul's jaw dropped. He stared at my mom. Tyson is...
Not mine, she promised. It's a long story.
I couldn't miss Percy's 15th birthday, Poseidon said. Why, if this was Sparta, Percy would be a man today. That's true, Paul said. I used to teach ancient history. Poseidon's eyes twinkled. That's me. Ancient history. Sally, Paul, Tyson, would you mind if I borrowed Percy for just a moment? He put his arm around me and steered me into the kitchen. Once we were alone, his smile faded. Are you all right, my boy? Yeah, I'm fine, I guess. I heard stories, Poseidon said, but I wanted to hear it directly from you. Tell me everything. So I did. It was kind of disconcerting, because Poseidon listened so intently. His eyes never left my face. His expression didn't change the whole time I talked. When I was done, he nodded slowly. So, Kronos is indeed back. It will not be long before full war is upon us. What about Luke? I asked. Is he really gone? I don't know, Percy. It is most disturbing. But his body is mortal. Couldn't you just destroy him? Poseidon looked troubled. Mortal, perhaps, but there's something different about Luke, my boy. I don't know how he was prepared to host the Titan's soul, but he will not be easily killed. And yet, I fear he must be killed if we are to send Kronos back to the pit. I'll have to think on this. Unfortunately, I have other problems of my own. I remembered what Tyson had told me at the beginning of summer. The old sea gods? Indeed. The battle came to me first, Percy. In fact, I cannot stay long. Even now the ocean is at war with itself. It is all I can do to keep hurricanes and typhoons from destroying your surface world. The fighting is so intense. Let me come down there, I said. Let me help. Poseidon's eyes crinkled as he smiled. Not yet, my boy. I sense you will be needed here. Which reminds me. He brought out a sand dollar, pressed it into my hand. Your birthday present. Spend it wisely. Spend a sand dollar? Oh yes. In my day, could buy quite a lot with a sand dollar. I think you will find it still buys a lot, if used in the right situation. What situation? When the time comes, Poseidon said, I think you'll know. I closed my hand around the sand dollar, but something was really bothering me. Dad, I said, when I was in the maze, I met Antaeus. He said he was your favorite son. He decorated his arena with skulls and he dedicated them to me, Poseidon supplied. Then you are wondering how someone could do something so horrible in my name. I nodded uncomfortably. Poseidon put his weathered hand on my shoulder. Percy, lesser beings do many horrible things in the name of the gods. That does not mean we gods approve. The way our sons and daughters act in our names, well, it usually says more about them than it does about us. And you, Percy, are my favorite son. He smiled, and at that moment, just being in the kitchen with him was the best birthday present I ever got. Then my mom called from the living room. Percy, the candles are melting. You better go, Poseidon said. But Percy, one last thing you should know. That incident at Mount St. Helens. For a second, I thought he was talking about Annabeth kissing me, and I blushed. And then I realized he was talking about something a lot bigger. The eruptions are continuing, he said. Typhon is stirring. It is very likely that soon, in a few months, perhaps a year at best, he will escape his bonds. I'm sorry, I said. I didn't mean... Poseidon raised his hand. It's not your fault, Percy. It would have happened sooner or later, with Kronos awakening the ancient monsters. But be aware, if Dyson stirs, it will be unlike anything you have faced before. The first time he appeared, all the forces of Olympus were barely enough to battle him. And when he stirs again, he will come here to New York. He will make straight for Olympus. That was just the kind of wonderful news I wanted to get on my birthday. But Poseidon patted me on the back, like everything was fine. I should go. Enjoy your cake. Just like that, he turned to mist and was swept out the window on a warm ocean breeze. It took a little work to convince Paul that Poseidon had left via the fire escape, but since people can't vanish into thin air, he had no choice but to believe it. We ate blue cake and ice cream until we couldn't eat anymore. Then we played a bunch of cheesy party games, like charades and Monopoly. Tyson didn't get charades. He kept shouting out the answer he was trying to mime, but it turned out he was really good at Monopoly. He knocked me out of the game in the first 5 rounds, started bankrupting my mom and pa. I left them playing and went into my bedroom. I set an uneaten slice of blue cake on my dresser. Then I took off my Camp Half-Blood necklace and laid it on my windowsill. There were 3 beads now, representing my 3 summers at camp. The trident, the golden fleece, and the latest, an intricate maze symbolizing the battle of the Labyrinth, as the campers had started to call it. I wondered what next year's bead would be, if I was still around to get it, if the camp survived until next summer. I looked at the telephone by my bedside. I thought about calling Rachel Elizabeth Dare. My mom had asked me if there was anyone else I wanted to have over tonight, and I thought about Rachel. But I didn't call. I don't know why. The idea made me almost as nervous as a door into the labyrinth. I patted my pockets and emptied out my stuff. Riptide, a Kleenex, my apartment key. Then I patted my shirt pocket and felt a small lump. I hadn't even realized it, but I was wearing the cotton shirt Calypso had given me on Ogygia. I brought out a little piece of cloth, unwrapped it, and found the clipping of moon lace. It was a tiny sprig, shriveled up after 2 months, but I could still smell the faint scent of the enchanted garden. It made me sad. I remembered Calypso's last request of me. Plant a garden in Manhattan for me, will you? I opened the window and stepped out onto the fire escape. My mom kept a planter box out there. In the spring, she usually filled it with flowers, but now it was all dirt, waiting for something new. It was a clear night. The moon was full over 82nd Street. I planted the dried sprig of moon lace carefully in the dirt and sprinkled a little nectar on it from my camp canteen. Nothing happened at first. Then, as I watched, a tiny silver plant sprang out of the soil. A baby moon lace, glowing in the warm summer night. Nice plant, a voice said. I jumped. Nico D'Angelo was standing on the fire escape right next to me. He just appeared there. Sorry, he said. I didn't mean to startle you. That's okay. I mean, what are you doing here? He'd grown about an inch taller over the past couple of months. His hair was a shaggy black mess. He wore a black t-shirt, black jeans, and a new silver ring shaped like a skull. His Stygian iron sword hung at his side. I've done some exploring, he said. Thought you'd like to know. Daedalus got his punishment. You saw him? Nico nodded. Minos wanted to boil him in cheese fondue for eternity, but my father had other ideas. Daedalus will be building overpasses and exit ramps in Asphodel for all time. It'll help ease the traffic congestion. Truthfully, I think the old guy is pretty happy with that. He's still building, still creating, and he gets to see his son and Perdix on the weekends. That's good. Nico tapped at his silver ring. That's not the real reason I've come. I found out something else. I want to make you an offer. What? The way to beat Luke, he said. If I'm right, it's the only way you'll stand a chance. I took a deep breath. Okay, I'm listening. Nico glanced inside my room. His eyebrows furrowed. Is that blue birthday cake? He sounded hungry, maybe a little wistful. I wondered if the poor kid had ever had a birthday party, or if he'd ever even been invited to one. Come inside for cake and ice cream, I said. It sounds like we've got a lot to talk about. I agree, Lay. The kid was 14. Is that blue birthday cake? I mean, I'm not interested or anything. Like what? I don't even eat. I don't even eat. What are you talking about? But is that blue birthday cake? Is it? Dude, poor freaking Nico. God. And what is this means to defeat Luke that he's talking about? What is he talking about? Dude, heck, I'd go for the blue ice cream. Not much for like the big frosting type cakes. Not to mention it would have to be dairy and gluten free. Blah. Blah. Bleh. I don't want any, but is it? Is that? Yeah, honestly, when I first like saw that line, I didn't think he was like hungry or wistful. I thought he was more just like deeply confused. Just, is that blue birthday cake? What the heck, dude? What? Who makes birthday cake in blue? Dude, I know. I feel like it's that. I hope I got across like what I was trying to when I was reading that Blowfish is totally like the good guy. Poseidon's the bad boy. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. But it's funny to see that dynamic in adults, like as grown as like at parental age. I think that dynamic is made funnier by that. Dude, I know. Dude, him walking in there and just bluntly being like, I'm Poseidon. Yeah, that's what I am. Ancient, baby. They call me Ancient, baby. Who? Oh, yes. Also, dude, I'm gonna throw this. Sorry, that was really aggressive. Don't worry, I'm not gonna hit you guys with the book, but I am angry. I'm frustrated. And about them Percy, why they gotta leave off the summer like that? Why they gotta leave off the summer like that? I'm frustrated, to say the least. That was a good ending, though. It's that kind of frustration that will lead me into the next book with ease. And he knows how to leave off on a dang cliffhanger, doesn't he? Just freaking. Oh yeah, hey Percy, I know the way you can defeat Luke. Been looking into some things. I got a means to an end. Hang on. It has been requested that I place upon my face 2 books. Let me go grab said books. I'll use our current book and the next book that we got here. Look at this, dude. It is obsidian. It is obsidian. With like a sea, dude, like a sea greenish blue. Like a dark sea blue as the inlay. Oh. So good. Da-da-dum. Ba-da-da-da-da-da-dum. Ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Woo! Woo! Oh yeah! Woo! I know. Please, hold your applause. Guys, hold your applause. Guys, heck. Listen, all I did was put some books on my face. There's no need for that kind of that kind of praise. Come on. Heck yeah, dude. Look at this thing. Dude, the fact that honestly, I think that's immensely effective. Because as we know, like, we've been following these books, right? And it's getting more and more serious as it goes on. And I just feel like having the last book be Obsidian Black, like, just really drives that in, that true despair is coming. Coming for all of them. Ooh, oh yeah. The Trials of Apollo. What? Check it out, dudes. This is the series that will be after this here book. The Heroes of Olympus. I'm excited for that. The Lost Hero. There's a Lost Hero graphic novel? Are you serious? Did you guys know about that? They made a Lost Hero graphic novel. Let's go. Let's go. Dude. That's exciting to say the least. Excuse me? Dude, what is this? Tell me why none of this stuff was in our previous books. A battle map of Manhattan. Dude, what?
Is there anything else like that just scattered through this book, or is that just at the start? Oh, dude. Look at this. At the end, they have praise for Percy Jackson and the Olympians. The Lightning Thief. Perfectly paced, with electrifying moments chasing each other like a heartbeat. The New York Times Book Review. An adventure quest with a hip edge. Let's go, School Library Journal. An adventure quest with a hip edge. Dude, that's the best way I think anyone could describe the Lightning Thief. I won't be spoiling myself. Don't worry. However, I am in dangerous territory. I don't know. There is a deep part of me that wants to start this book right freaking now. But I don't know. Probably ought not to do that, right? Excuse me? Hello, Muffin. Man, you picked a good night to do that. This is a commemorative night for we just finished this here book. And your request is to start the next book. Mobbin! You are a man after my own heart. Do you know that? Do you know that? Not only do you gift sub to 5 of the folks in our community, but you also give me what I desire most, which is more book. For the tingles. Oh, are you talking about like the ambience? Is that what you mean by tingles? No, that's the best I can guess. Yeah, the ASMR. Heck yeah, man. Honest to goodness, I'm glad that I've started to make the ambience like a part of each stream. Heck yeah, man. Makes for a nice, soothing bedtime story time. But seriously, thank you, and congratulations to let's see. Congratulations to Schmexy, Rob, the Ream, Master, Alert, and Porple for becoming orchids among wildflowers. ASMR helped you through depression. Nice. That's good, man. You're welcome, Master Alert. Dude, I feel like whenever I say your name, it's like I trip up in the middle of it. Master Alert. Or stutter or something. I like it though. No, I don't record these.
This one comes at you from a channel called Cozy Rain. Some good stuff though. I put it on in my spare time. I'd like to though at some point. Need to figure out like ASMR microphones and stuff. Oh, do I record these? Yes, sorry, I do. Yeah, I download the VODs. My bad, dude. I do download the VODs. I plop them up on my YouTube page. I have a YouTube page that I'm gonna be using for like highlights and like, you know, reviews and stuff like that. Yeah, I forgot that's what the message was. I think that one will lead you to the main YouTube page, which is just Mary Mitch. But you're gonna be looking for Mary Mitch Meadow. Aw, heck yeah, let's go. Unless, does that one take you to the meadow? I think it might. It takes you to the meadow. Sweet, sweet. Good, good. Good, good. I was hoping it would. Cause I figured that would be the best link to like to give people, since I assumed they'd be looking for the VODs. But heck yeah, man, there's like a whole spiel of them on there now. I'm still catching up, like slowly but surely. They tend to come out about a week after it's aired. But heck yes. Are we ready? Are we ready to jump into more story time? And read the first chapter of the new book here? Oh yes. Oh yes. Let me take a commemorative sip of my tea. Delicious. All right. Let's do it then. To Mrs. Pabst, my English teacher in the 8th grade, who started me on my journey as a writer. This is Percy Jackson and the Last Olympian by Rick Riordan. One. I go cruising with explosives. The end of the world started when a Pegasus landed on the hood of my car. Up until then, I was having a great afternoon. Technically, I wasn't supposed to be driving because I wouldn't turn 16 for another week, but my mom and my stepdad, Paul, took my friend Rachel and me to this private stretch of beach on the South Shore, and Paul let us borrow his Prius for a short spin. Now, I know what you're thinking. Wow, that was really irresponsible of him, blah blah blah. But Blowfish knows me pretty well. He's seen me slice up demons and leap out of exploding school buildings, so he probably figured taking a car a few hundred yards wasn't exactly the most dangerous thing I'd ever done. Anyway, Rachel and I were driving along. It was a hot August day. Rachel's red hair was pulled back in a ponytail, and she wore a white blouse over her swimsuit. I'd never seen her in anything but ratty t-shirts and paint-splattered jeans. And she looked like a million golden drachmas. Oh! Pull up right there! She told me. We parked on a ridge overlooking the Atlantic. The sea is always one of my favorite places. But today, it was especially nice. Glittery green and smooth as glass, as though my dad was keeping it calm just for us. My dad, by the way, is Poseidon. He can do stuff like that. So, Rachel smiled at me. About that invitation. Oh, right. I tried to sound excited. I mean, she'd asked me to her family's vacation house on St. Thomas for 3 days. I didn't get a lot of offers like that. My family's idea of fancy vacation was a weekend in a rundown cabin on Long Island with some movie rentals and a couple of frozen pizzas. And here, Rachel's folks were willing to let me tag along to the Caribbean. Besides, I seriously needed a vacation. This summer had been the hardest of my life. The idea of taking a break, even for a few days, was really tempting. Still, something big was supposed to go down any day now. I was on call for a mission. Even worse, next week was my birthday. There was this prophecy that said when I turned 16, bad things would happen.
Percy, she said, I know the timing is bad, but it's always bad for you, right?
She had a point. I really want to go, I promised. It's just the war. I nodded. I didn't like talking about it, but Rachel knew. Unlike most mortals, she could see through the mist, the magic veil that distorts human vision. She'd seen monsters. She'd met some of the other demigods who were fighting the Titans and their allies. She'd even been there last summer when the chopped-up Lord Kronos rose out of his coffin in a terrible new form. And she'd earned my permanent respect by nailing him in the eye with a blue plastic hairbrush. She put her hand on my arm.
Just think about it, okay? We don't leave for a couple of days. My dad...
Her voice faltered. Is he giving you a hard time? I asked. Rachel shook her head in disgust.
He's trying to be nice to me, which is almost worse. He wants me to go to Clarion Ladies Academy in the fall.
The school where your mom went?
It's a stupid finishing school for society girls. All the way in New Hampshire. Can you see me in a finishing school?
I admitted the idea sounded pretty dumb. Rachel was into urban art projects and feeding the homeless and going to protest rallies to save the endangered yellow-bellied sapsucker and stuff like that. I'd never seen her wear a dress. It was hard to imagine her learning to be a socialite. She sighed.
He thinks if he does a bunch of nice stuff for me, I'll feel guilty and give in.
Which is why he agreed to let me come with you guys on vacation.
Yes? But Percy, you're doing me a huge favor. It would be so much better if you were with us. Besides, there's something I want to talk...
She stopped abruptly. Something you want to talk about? I asked. You mean... so serious we'd have to go to St. Thomas to talk about it? She pursed her lips.
Look, just forget it for now. Let's pretend we're a couple of normal people. We're out for a drive, and we're watching the ocean, and it's nice to be together.
I could tell something was bothering her, but she put on a brave smile. The sunlight made her hair look like fire. We spent a lot of time together this summer. I hadn't exactly planned it that way, but the more serious things got at camp, the more I found myself needing to call up Rachel and get away, just for some breathing room. I needed to remind myself that the mortal world was still out there, away from all the monsters using me as their personal punching bag. "Okay," I said. "Just a normal afternoon and 2 normal people." She nodded. "And so, hypothetically, if these 2 people liked each other, what would it take to get this stupid guy to kiss the girl, huh?" "Oh." I felt like one of Apollo's scared cows. Sacred cows. Slow, dumb, and bright red. I can't pretend I hadn't thought about Rachel. She was so much easier to be around than, well, than some other girls I knew. I didn't have to work hard, or watch what I say, or rack my brain trying to figure out what she was thinking. Rachel didn't hide much. She let you know how she felt. I'm not sure what I would have done next, but I was so distracted, I didn't notice the huge black form swooping down from the sky until 4 hooves landed on the hood of the Prius with a boom.
Hey, boss.
A voice said in my head.
Nice car.
Blackjack the Pegasus was an old friend of mine, so I tried not to get too annoyed by the craters he just put in the hood, but I didn't think my stepdad would be real stoked. "Blackjack," I sighed. "What are you—" Then I saw who was riding on his back, and I knew my day was about to get a lot more complicated.
Sup, Percy?
"What's up, Percy?" Charles Beckendorf, senior counselor for the Festus cabin, would make most monsters cry for their mummies. He was huge, with ripped muscles from working on the forges every summer, 2 years older than me, and one of the camp's best armorsmiths. He made some serious, ingenious mechanical stuff. A month before, he'd rigged a Greek firebomb in the bathroom of a tour bus that was carrying a bunch of monsters across country. The explosion took out a whole legion of Kronos' evil meanies as soon as the first harpy went flush. Beckendorf was dressed for combat. He wore a bronze breastplate, and war helm with black camo pants and a sword strapped to his side. His explosives bag was slung over his shoulder. "Time?" I asked. He nodded grimly. A clump formed in my throat. I'd known this was coming. We'd been planning for it for weeks, but I'd half hoped it would never happen. Rachel looked up at Beckendorf. "Hi."
Oh, hey. I'm Beckendorf. You must be Rachel. Percy's, he mentioned you."
Rachel raised an eyebrow. "Really? Good." She glanced at Blackjack, who was clopping his hooves against the hood of the Prius. "So, I guess you guys have to go save the world now?"
Pretty much.
Beckendorf agreed. I looked at Rachel helplessly. "Would you tell my mom?" "I'll tell her. I'm sure she's used to it. And I'll explain to Paul about the hood." I nodded my thanks. I figured this might be the last time Paul loaned me his car. "Good luck." Rachel kissed me before I could even react. "Now, get going, Half-Blood. Go go kill some monsters for me. My last view of her was sitting in the shotgun seat of the Prius, her arms crossed, watching as Blackjack circled higher and higher, carrying Beckendorf and me into the sky. I wondered what Rachel wanted to talk to me about, and whether I'd live long enough to find out.
So,
Beckendorf said,
I'm guessing you don't want me to mention that little scene to Annabeth?
"Oh gods," I muttered. "Don't even think about it." Beckendorf chuckled, and together we soared out over the Atlantic. It was almost dark by the time we spotted our target. The Princess Andromeda glowed on the horizon, a huge cruise ship lit up yellow and white. From a distance, you'd think it was just a party ship, not the headquarters for the Titan Lord. Then, as you got closer, you might notice the giant figurehead, a dark-haired maiden in a Greek chiton, wrapped in chains with a look of horror on her face, and as if she could smell the stench of all the monsters she was being forced to carry. Seeing the ship again twisted my gut into knots. I'd almost died twice on the Princess Andromeda. Now it was heading straight for New York.
You know what to do?
Beckendorf yelled over the wind. I nodded. We'd done dry runs at the dockyards in New Jersey, using abandoned ships as our targets. I knew how little time we would have, but I also knew this was our best chance to end Kronos' invasion before it ever started. "Blackjack," I said, "set us down on the lowest stern deck."
"Gotcha, boss,"
he said.
"Man, I hate seeing that boat."
3 years ago, Blackjack had been enslaved on the Princess Andromeda until he'd escaped with a little help from my friends and I. I figured he'd rather have his mane braided like My Little Pony than be back here again. "Don't wait for us," I told him.
"But, boss..."
"Trust me," I said. "We'll get out by ourselves." Blackjack folded his wings and plummeted toward the boat like a black comet. The wind whistled in my ears. I saw monsters patrolling the upper decks of the ship. Drachni, snake women, hellhounds, giants, and the humanoid seal demons known as Telkines. But we zipped by so fast, none of them raised the alarm. We shot down the stern of the boat, and Blackjack spread his wings, lightly coming to a landing on the lowest dock. I climbed off, feeling queasy.
"Good luck, boss,"
Blackjack said.
"Don't let 'em turn you into horse meat."
With that, my old friend flew off into the night. I took my pen out of my pocket and uncapped it, and Riptide sprang to full size. 3 feet of deadly celestial bronze glowing in the dusk. Beckendorf pulled a piece of paper out of his pocket. I thought it was a map or something. Then I realized it was a photograph. He stared at it in the dim light. The smiling face of Selena Beauregard, daughter of Aphrodite. They started going out last summer, after years of the rest of us saying, "Duh, you guys of course like each other." Even with all the dangerous missions, Beckendorf had been happier this summer than I'd ever met him. "We'll make it back to camp," I promised. For a second, I saw worry in his eyes. Then he put on his old confident smile.
"You bet," he said. "Let's go blow Kronos back into 1,000,000 pieces."
Beckendorf led the way. We followed a narrow corridor to the service stairwell, just like we'd practiced, but we froze when we heard noises above us.
I don't care what your nose says,
snarled a half-human, half-dog voice, a Telkine.
The last time you smelled half-blood, it turned out to be meatloaf. Meatloaf? Sandwiches are good,
A second voice snarled.
but this is half-blood scent, I swear. They are on board. Bah, your brain isn't on board.
They continued to argue, and Beckendorf pointed downstairs. Finally, we descended as quietly as we could. 2 floors down, the voices of the Talkines started to fade. Finally, we came to a metal hatch. Beckendorf mouthed the words, "Engine room." It was locked, but Beckendorf pulled some chain cutters out of his bag and split the bolt like it was made of butter. Inside, a row of yellow turbines the size of grain silos churned and hummed. Pressure gauges and computer terminals lined the opposite wall. A Talkine was hunched over the console, but he was so involved with his work, he didn't notice us. He was about 5 feet tall, with slick, black seal fur and stubby little feet. He had the head of a Doberman, but his clawed hands were almost human. He growled and muttered as he tapped on his keyboard. Maybe he was messaging his friends on uglyface.com. Hoo!
Snap, dude.
I stepped forward and he tensed, probably smelling something was wrong. He leapt sideways toward a big red alarm button, but I blocked his path. He hissed and lunged at me, but one slice of riptide, and he exploded into dust. "One down," Beckendorf said. "About 5,000 to go." He tossed me a jar of thick green liquid, Greek fire, one of the most dangerous magical substances in the world. Then he threw me another essential tool of demigod heroes: duct tape. "Slap that one on the console," he said. "I'll get the turbines." We went to work. The room was hot and humid, and in no time, we were drenched in sweat. The boat kept chugging along. Being the son of Poseidon and all, I have perfect bearings at sea. Don't ask me how, but I could tell we were at 40.19 degrees north, 71.90 degrees west, making 18 knots, which meant the ship would arrive in New York Harbor by dawn. This would be our only chance to stop it. I had just attached the second jar of Greek fire to the control panels when I heard the pounding of feet on metal steps. So many creatures coming down the stairwell. I could hear them over the engines. Not a good sign. I locked eyes with Beckendorf. "How much longer?" "Too long." He tapped his watch, which was our remote-controlled detonator. "I still have to wire the receiver and prime the charges. 10 more minutes at least." Judging from the sound of the footsteps, we had about 10 seconds. "I'll distract them," I said. "Meet you at the rendezvous point." "Percy, wish me luck." He looked like he wanted to argue. The whole idea had been to get in and out without getting spotted, but we were going to have to improvise. "Good luck," he said. I charged out the door. half a dozen telkines were tromping down the stairs. I cut through them with Riptide faster than they could yelp. I kept climbing, past another telkine who was so startled he dropped his little demon's lunchbox. I left him alive, partly because his lunchbox was cool, partly so he could raise the alarm and hopefully get his friends to follow me rather than head toward the engine room. I burst through a door onto deck 6 and kept running. I'm sure the carpeted hall had once been very plush, but over the last 3 years of monster occupation, the wallpaper, carpet, and stateroom doors had been clawed up and slimed so it looked like the inside of a dragon's throat. And yes, unfortunately, I speak from experience. Back on my first visit to the Princess Andromeda, my old enemy Luke had kept some dazed tourists on board for show, shrouded in mist so they didn't realize they were on a monster-infested ship. Now, I didn't see any sign of tourists. I hated to think what had happened to them, but I kind of doubted they'd been allowed to go home with their bingo winnings. I reached the promenade, a big shopping mall that took up the whole middle of the ship, and I stopped cold. In the middle of the courtyard stood a fountain, and in the fountain squatted a giant crab. I'm not talking giant like $7.99 all-you-can-eat Alaskan king crab. I'm talking giant, like bigger than the fountain. The monster rose 10 feet out of the water. Its shell was molded blue and green, mottled blue and green, its pincers longer than my body. If you've ever seen a crab's mouth, all foamy and gross with whiskers and snapping bits, you can imagine this one didn't look any better blown up to the size of a billboard. Its beady black eyes glared at me, and I could see intelligence in them. And hate. The fact that I was the son of the sea god was not going to win me any points with Mr. Krabby. It hissed, sea foam dripping from its mouth. The smell coming off it was like a garbage can full of fish sticks that had been sitting in the sun all week. Alarms blared. Soon I was going to have lots of company, and I had to keep moving. Hey, Krabby. I inched around the edge of the courtyard. I'm just gonna scoot around you, so... The crab moved with amazing speed. It scuttled out of the fountain and came straight at me, pincers snapping. I dove into a gift shop. Plowing through a rack of t-shirts, a crab pincer smashed the glass wall to pieces and raked across the room. I dashed back outside, breathing heavily. But Mr. Krabby turned and followed. There! A voice said from a balcony above me. Intruder! If I'd wanted to create a distraction, I'd succeeded. But this was not where I wanted to fight. If I got pinned down in the center of the ship, I was crab chow. The demonic crustacean lunged at me. I sliced with Riptide, taking off the tip of its claw. It hissed and foamed, but it didn't seem very hurt. I tried to remember anything from the old stories that might help me with this thing. Annabeth had told me about a monster crab, something about Hercules crushing it under his foot. That wasn't going to work here. The crab was still slightly bigger than my Reeboks. Then a weird thought occurred to me. Last Christmas, my mom and I had brought Paul Blowfish to our old cabin at Montauk, where we'd been going forever. Paul had taken me crabbing, and when he brought up a net full of the things, he'd shown me how crabs have a chink in their armor, right in the middle of their ugly bellies. The only problem was getting to the ugly belly. I glanced at the fountain, then at the marble floor. Already slick from scuttling crab tracks, I held out my hand, concentrating on the water, and the fountain exploded. Water sprayed everywhere, 3 stories high, dousing the balconies and the elevators and the windows of the shops. The crab didn't care. It loved water. It came at me sideways, snapping and hissing, and I ran straight at it, screaming, "Ah!" Just before we collided, I hit the ground, baseball style, and slid on the wet marble floor, straight under the creature. It was like sliding under a 7-ton armored vehicle. All the crab had to do was sit and squash me, but before it realized what was going on, I jabbed Riptide into the chink in its armor, let go of the hilt, and pushed myself out the backside. The monster shuddered and hissed. Its eyes dissolved, its shell turned bright red, and its insides evaporated. The empty shell clattered to the floor in a massive heap. I didn't have time to admire my handiwork. I ran for the nearest stairs, while all around me monsters and demigods shouted orders and strapped on their weapons. I was empty-handed. Riptide, being magic, would appear in my pocket sooner or later, but for now, it was stuck somewhere under the wreckage of the crab, and I had no time to retrieve it. In the elevator foyer on the deck 8, a couple of drachni slithered across my path. From the waist up, they were women with green scaly skin, yellow eyes, and forked tongues. From the waist down, they had double snake trunks instead of legs. They held spears and weighted nets, and I knew from experience they could use them.
"What is this?" one said. "A prize for Kronos."
I wasn't in the mood to play break the snake, but in front of me was a stand with a model of the ship, like a "You Are Here" display. I ripped the model off the pedestal and hurled it at the first drachni. The boat smacked her in the face, and she went down with the ship. I jumped over her, grabbed her friend's spear, and swung her around. She slammed into the elevator, and I kept running toward the front of the ship.
"Get him!"
She screamed. Hellhounds bayed. An arrow from somewhere whizzed past my face and impaled itself in the mahogany-paneled wall of the stairwell. I didn't care, as long as I got the monsters away from the engine room and gave Beckendorf enough time. As I was running up the stairwell, a kid charged down. He looked like he'd just woken up from a nap. His armor was half on. He drew his sword and yelled,
"Kronos!"
but he sounded more scared than angry. He couldn't have been more than 12, about the same age I was when I'd first arrived at Camp Half-Blood. The thought depressed me. The kid was getting brainwashed, trained to hate the gods and lash out because he'd been born half Olympian. Kronos was using him, and yet the kid thought I was his enemy. No way I was going to hurt him. I didn't need a weapon for this. I stepped inside his strike and grabbed his wrist, slamming it against the wall. His sword clattered out of his hand. Then I did something I hadn't planned on. It was probably stupid. It definitely jeopardized our mission, but I couldn't help it. "If you want to live," I told him, "get off this ship now. Tell the other demigods." Then I shoved him down the stairs and sent him tumbling to the next floor. I kept climbing. Bad memories. The hallway ran past the cafeteria. Annabeth, my half-brother Tyson, and I had sneaked through here 3 years ago on my first visit. I burst outside onto the main deck. Off the port bow, the sky was darkening from purple to black, A swimming pool glowed between two glass towers with more balconies and restaurant decks. The whole upper ship seemed eerily deserted. All I had to do was cross to the other side. Then, I could take the staircase down to the helipad. Our emergency rendezvous point. With any luck, Beckendorf would meet me there. We'd jump into the sea, my water powers would protect us both, and we'd detonate the charges from a quarter-mile away. I was halfway across the deck when the sound of a voice made me freeze. "You're late, Percy." Luke stood on the balcony above me, a smile on his scarred face. He wore jeans, a white t-shirt, and flip-flops, like he was just a normal college-age guy. But his eyes told the truth. They were solid gold. "We've been expecting you for days." At first, he sounded normal like Luke, but then his face twitched. A shudder passed through his body, as though he'd just drunk something real nasty. His voice became heavier, ancient, and powerful. The voice of the Titan Lord, Kronos. The words scraped down my spine like a knife blade. "Come! Bow before me!" "Yeah, that'll happen," I muttered. Lastrygonian giants filed in on either side of the swimming pool as if they'd been waiting for a cue. Each was 8 feet tall with tattooed arms, leather armor, and spiked clubs. Demigod archers appeared on the roof above Luke. 2 hellhounds leapt down from the opposite balcony and snarled at me. Within seconds, I was surrounded. A trap. There's no way they could have gotten into position so fast unless they'd known I was coming. I looked up at Luke. The anger boiled inside of me. I didn't know if Luke's consciousness was even still alive inside that body. Maybe the way his voice had changed. Or maybe it was just Kronos adapting to his new form. I told myself it didn't matter. Luke had been twisted and evil long before Kronos possessed him. A voice in my head said, "I have to fight him eventually. Why not now?" According to that big prophecy, I was supposed to make a choice that saved or destroyed the world when I was 16. That was only 7 days away. Why not now? If I really had the power, what difference would a week make? I could end this threat right here by taking down Kronos. Hey, I'd fought monsters and gods before. As if reading my thoughts, Luke smiled. No, he was Kronos. I had to remember that. "Come forward," he said. "If you dare." The crowd of monsters parted. I moved up the stairs, my heart pounding. I was sure somebody would stab me in the back, but they let me pass. I felt my pocket and found my pen waiting. I uncapped it, and Riptide grew into a sword. Kronos' weapon appeared in his hands, a 6-foot-long scythe, half celestial bronze, half mortal steel. Just looking at the thing made my knees turn to jello. But before I could change my mind, I charged. Time slowed down. I mean, literally slowed down. Because Kronos had that power. I felt like I was moving through syrup. My arms were so heavy, I could barely raise my sword. Kronos smiled, swirling his scythe at normal speed, and waiting for me to creep towards my death. I tried to fight his magic. I concentrated on the sea around me, the source of my power. I'd gotten better at channeling it over the years, but now nothing seemed to happen. I took another slow step forward. Giants jeered. Drachnai hissed with laughter. "Hey, Ocean," I pleaded. "Any day now would be good." Suddenly, there was a wrenching pain in my gut. The entire boat lurched sideways, throwing monsters off their feet. 4,000 gallons of salt water surged out of the swimming pool, dousing me and Kronos and everyone on the deck. The water revitalized me, breaking the time spell, and I lunged forwards. I struck at Kronos, but I was still too slow. I made the mistake of looking at his face. Luke's face. A guy who was once my friend. As much as I hated him, it was hard to kill him. Kronos had no such hesitation. He sliced downward with his scythe. I leapt back. The evil blade missed by an inch, cutting a gash in the deck right between my feet. I kicked Kronos in the chest. He stumbled backwards, but he was heavier than Luke should have been. It was like kicking a refrigerator. Kronos swung his scythe again. I intercepted with Riptide, but his strike was so powerful. My blade could only deflect it. The edge of the scythe shaved off my shirt sleeve and grazed my arm. It shouldn't have been a serious cut, but the entire side of my body exploded with pain. I remembered what a sea demon had once said about Kronos' scythe.
"Careful, you fool. One touch, and the blade will sever your soul from your body."
Now I understood what he meant. I wasn't just losing blood. I could feel my strength, my will, my identity draining away. I stumbled backwards, switched my sword to my left hand, and lunged desperately. My blade should have run him through, but it deflected off his stomach like I was hitting solid marble. There was no way he should have survived that. Kronos laughed.
"A poor performance, Percy Jackson. Luke tells me you were never his match at swords play."
My vision started to blur. I knew I didn't have much time. "Luke had a big head," I said, "but at least it was still his."
"A shame to kill you now,"
Kronos mused.
"Before the final plan unfolds. I would love to see the terror in your eyes when you realize how I will destroy Olympus."
"You'll never get this boat to Manhattan." My arm was throbbing. Black spots danced in my vision.
"And why would that be?"
Kronos' golden eyes glittered. His face, Luke's face, seemed like a mask, unnatural and lit from behind by some evil power.
"Perhaps you are counting on your friend with the explosives?"
He looked down at the pool and called,
"Nakamura!"
A teenage guy in full Greek armor pushed through the crowd. His left eye was covered with a black patch. I knew him, of course. Ethan Nakamura, the son of Nemesis. I'd saved his life in the Labyrinth last summer, and in return, the little punk had helped Kronos come back to life. "Success, my lord," Ethan called.
We found him just as we were told. He clapped his hands, and two giants lumbered forward, dragging Charles Beckendorf between them. My heart almost stopped. Beckendorf had a swollen eye and cuts all over his face and arms. His armor was gone, and his shirt was nearly torn off. "No!" I yelled. Beckendorf met my eyes. He glanced at his hand like he was trying to tell me something. His watch. They hadn't taken it yet. That was the detonator. Was it possible the explosives were armed? Surely the monsters would have dismantled them right away.
"We found him amidships,"
one of the giants said,
"trying to sneak to the engine room. Can we eat him now?"
"Soon." Kronos scowled at Ethan.
"Are you sure he didn't set the explosives?"
He was going toward the engine room, my lord.
"How do you know?"
Ethan shifted uncomfortably. He was heading in that direction, and he told us his bag is still full of explosives. Slowly, I began to understand. Beckendorf had fooled them. When he realized he was going to be captured, he turned to make it look like he was going the other way. He'd convinced them he hadn't made it to the engine room yet. The Greek fire might still be primed. But that didn't do us any good unless we could get off the ship and detonate it. Kronos hesitated. By the story, I prayed. The pain in my arm was so bad now, I could barely stand it.
"Open his bag,"
Kronos ordered. One of the giants ripped the explosive satchel from Beckendorf's shoulders. He peered inside, grunted, and turned it upside down. Panicked monsters surged backwards. If the bag really had been full of Greek fire jars, we would have all blown up. But what fell out were a dozen cans of peaches. I could hear Kronos breathing, trying to control his anger.
"Did you perhaps," he said, "capture this demigod near the galley?"
Ethan turned pale.
"And did you, perhaps, send someone to actually check the engine room?"
Ethan scrambled back in terror, then turned on his heels and ran. I cursed silently. Now we had only minutes before the bombs were disarmed. I caught Beckendorf's eyes again and asked a silent question, hoping he would understand. How long? He cupped his fingers and thumb, making a circle. 0. There was no delay on the timer at all. If he managed to press the detonator button, the ship would blow at once. We'd never be able to get far enough away before using it. The monsters would kill us first, or disarm the explosives, or both. Kronos turned towards me with a crooked smile.
"You'll have to excuse my incompetent help, Percy Jackson. But it doesn't matter. We have you now. We've known you were coming for weeks."
He held out his hand and dangled a little silver bracelet with a scythe charm, the Titan Lord's symbol.
The wound in my arm was sapping my ability to think, but I muttered, "Communication device. Spy at camp." God. Kronos chuckled.
You can't count on your friends. They will always let you down. Luke learned that lesson the hard way. Now drop your sword and surrender to me, or your friend dies.
I swallowed. One of the giants had his hand around Beckendorf's neck. I was in no shape to rescue him, and even if I tried, he would die before I got there. We both would. Beckendorf mouthed one word. Go. I shook my head. I couldn't just leave him. The second giant was still rummaging through the peach cans, which meant Beckendorf's left arm was free. He raised it slowly toward the watch on his right wrist. I wanted to scream. No. No. Then, down by the swimming pool, one of the Drachnai hissed.
What is he doing? What is that on his wrist?
Beckendorf closed his eyes tight and brought his hand up to his watch. I had no choice. I threw my sword like a javelin at Kronos. It bounced harmlessly off his chest, but it did startle him. I pushed through the crowd of monsters and jumped off the side of the ship, toward the water 100 feet below. I heard rumbling deep in the ship. Monsters yelled at me from above. A spear sailed past my ear. An arrow pierced my thigh, but I barely had time to register the pain. I plunged into the sea and willed the currents to take me far, far away. 100 yards, 200 yards. Even from that distance, the explosion shook the world. Heat seared the back of my head. The Princess Andromeda blew up from both sides. A massive fireball of green flame roiling into the dark sky, consuming everything. Beckendorf, I thought. Then I blacked out and sank like an anchor toward the bottom of the sea. God. How's that for the start of a book? How's that for the start of the final book in the series? Oh, good Lord. Hang on, let me catch up with chat a bit. First of all, thank you so much, Lucas, for the host, man. And for all of you guys that stuck around. Hope you enjoyed that exciting and riveting start to The Last Olympian. I know, Keaton. Freaking crazy. Thanks for adding the term, Lucas. I don't know. It censored cramples for some reason. I don't know. The system is a little weird. Yeah, you made it for the end here. Um, it's okay, dude. I saw you were streaming. I checked out like a short bit of it while I was eating some dinner. But how did most of it go, man? Did you enjoy your time? Nice. Right on. Please, can you cool your hoodie up? You head from your sweater? I could, but sadly this hood, like, it's oddly enough, I love this sweatshirt. Look, it's got like cool little grooves. And fun fact, I got it from Lucas, from Loopcoob's in the chat. Holla at ya. But the hoodie is tiny, and I'm a fan of like the big hoods, you know, the ones that I can just like rest on the top of my head. This one is like oh yes. I'll wear it like this for the rest of the stream. I am Ninja Brian. Merry Ninja. Yeah. Get this out of here. I'll allow it. I'll allow it. I won't deny it. I won't deny it. I'm glad I looked like a squire as well. I feel like the two things often get confused. Squire, seaman. You know, it happens. Dude, I freaking love doing the Telkines' voices. Any like voice that has a uniqueness beyond even an accent is like, I don't know, it delights me so. Much like Grover's voice, with like the Telkines, like I try to add like a snarl into certain parts of their lines. Some snarly goodness. They are a bit goofy. Hey Lay, thanks for sticking around for the whole stream. Honest to goodness, like I freaking hope you enjoyed it, and I pray you sleep tight and wake up tomorrow feeling refreshed. I have not yet, Rag. I'm sorry. Wish I had. But you know, I only have so much spare time. And only so many Bibles. Believe me, you know I am a man of the cloth, if you would say. You know, like I'm a holy man. But I only own so many Bibles. As a holy man, I do my best to give them away when I can. You know? That's the best excuse I can come up with. Well, dang. Big shout out to Mobbin. Thank you so much, my man. It's I don't know. It was a crazy, awesome like surprise to have those gift subs pop up and then have the request be to start the new book. And boy, what a start to it, man. So good. Thank you, Master.
Well, guys, we are going to go off and end the stream here. But I say we continue to spread the love. I've felt a lot of love tonight, so maybe we could go and raid my man Cookie again. Yeah, heck yeah. It'll most likely, I believe it. Yeah, it'll automatically host him after the channel cuts out. But I don't know. Should I just do that or do a raid? What do? I guess either does a similar thing. So nice, yeah. I won't worry about the raid, but I will let you guys know. Please, if you're hoping to watch some more, nice content and hang around with a cool chap, then stick around and meet my buddy Cookie. He's a really cool guy. Doesn't automatically. That way you all do not have a choice. Wait, I did? I did! What? Let's go! That's due in a large part to specifically Remdog and Mobbin. They've been immensely generous with their gift subs. And heck, dude, thank you for pointing that out. That means tomorrow we'll be doing some simp horror games. Let's go. Simp horror game hype. Probably start with like Limbo. Then I have like a few Japanese horror games. Yeah, in fact, I'll give you guys let me see. Yeah. I'll give you guys a little taste. These are the horror games. Yeah, I have them in spooks. These are the horror games that we will get to play. Limbo, I really want to check out. Distraint looked interesting. There's Nihilumbra, which I have no idea what it's about, but it's got a real creepy vibe to it. Which these aren't so much horror, but are more just like unsettling games. But these ones I know are tried and true, like survival horror sort of dealios. I do have a Discord. If you type in !Discord, it will lead you into the Merry Meadow. And you can truly become a wildflower. Go ahead and mosey your way in there. We'd love to have you. And that's also a good way to get a little ping whenever my streams go up. But heck yeah, dude. That means, dang, we made it. We made it to 50 subs. Or it says, wait, what? It says 49 up there. Did something happen? I'm confused. Regardless, I'm gonna count it. I did see it was at 50. So that might be just a weird bug. Oh no. Well, hey, no worries, dude. Yeah, someone's might have, but everybody saw it. We made it to 50, so I'm gonna count it, and we'll do some horror games tomorrow night. Try to guess who you are, Mr. Master. Let me see. Let me see here.
Are you Masterler? Masterler? With the picture of the dude. Let's see. Who is the Reem? I am not entirely sure. I think you got me there. Unless you're a Dima guy. I'm not sure at the Reem. Give you a hint. Swag. Swag? Are you Master Rag? There's two masters in here. The real question is, can you guess who I am in the server? You got it, dude. I've been Cookie this whole time. I'm about to host my own channel. It's just me, but I just do like I do one of my voices. So it's a voice acting talent. I can have multiple streams. And you'd never know the difference. That makes sense. That does make sense. I don't know, I'm not seeing like someone with swag in the title. That's why I could only think that rag rhymes with swag. So, you know. I do like your profile picture. It is very zen. And I can get down with that. Let's see. Cells. Cells. Yours is solid. I like the purple. As you can tell, I am a big fan of purple. With the dark blue in the background. It's got like a cool neon feel. And Master Lure. I have no idea who that is in your profile. But he looks like a good boy. Ah, that would make sense. Heck yes. Funnily enough, my favorite color isn't purple. Fun fact, my favorite color is orange. But I must say, like, I don't know, I love the pastel stuff. Pink, purple, and light blues. Nice. Mitch. What about your profile picture? You already know how I feel about yours. Like, no friggin' lie, dude. Keaton, yours is amazing. The style in that one is sick. The angle compounded with like the action lines going vertical. Super good, dude. Well, thank you. I enjoy laughing. It's funny because throughout my life, I know Nightlight, she comes into the chat sometimes, but we were friends in high school. She would comment about how my laugh would alter and change depending on what I was laughing about. Like, it would sometimes be like or it would and then it would go like up to a higher pitch. Occasionally it would just be like a like a one ha that's like thrown out abruptly. But that's what I like. I like to not control my laughs and let them be as genuine as they possibly can be. And in my mind, it makes sense for a laugh to alter and change. As it, I don't know, depending on the circumstances. Are we doing Discord? Poof, poof. I have no idea what PFP is. Oh, pics or Twitch pics. Gotcha. No, we were doing Discord pictures. Profile pictures. My profile picture on there is just the words icon. You're very welcome, Keaton. Well, guys, it's getting late over where I'm at. And I actually have something like tomorrow at around 3 p.m. which I know I'll be up for regardless of how late I stay up, but still, I went to bed at a really late hour last night, and I'm hoping to get to bed at a little bit of a better hour tonight. And I don't know if I will, dude. I have given up for the time. If you'd like to tell me, I'm open to hearing what it is, but I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, dude, I woke up at like 1 p.m. today. And I commented at the start that it's one of my least, like, I tend to wake up grumpier if I wake up later in the day. Because I feel as though I've lost daylight, you know? Like, I've wasted part of my day. Or, I don't know, it just feels better to get up as the sun does, you know? And I wind up getting more done on those kinds of days and feeling more fulfilled by the end of it, you know? You're Emily. No way, Thareem. Oh, and in the picture, I see where the swag comes in. Shoot, dude. If I was only a better detective. Alas. Maybe next time. I hear you there, dude. I may be up tonight watching some Somali in the Forest Spirit. That show has got me hooked. Which I'm kind of grateful for, honestly. I feel at a loss whenever I don't have a series, you know, that I'm invested in. If that makes sense. Like, it's comforting to know that I have something that, like, a piece of media I can go to that I know will be adequate and like nice. Well, thank you everybody for coming by, getting cozy, getting comfy, and hearing a story. Yeah, man, this was an awesome night. Thanks again to Mobbin and Remdog for resubscribing, and all those of you that support me either financially or simply through your presence and your words of encouragement. I thank all of you, and I love you all very, very much. And I hope to see you tomorrow for some horror games and some horror stories, maybe even some creepypasta. Check us out tomorrow, and I hope to see you then. Be sure to take the merriment we mustered tonight. Hold it within your heart. Don't let it go, and let it flourish into the morning. Till next time, wildflowers, keep on swaying.